the silent drifter commander. Dex adjusted his six-armed grip on the navigation console as his salvage ship, the Prophet Seeker, drifted through the empty void between star systems. The Zephyrian had been hunting for scrap metal and abandoned technology for over 20 cycles, but nothing had prepared him for what his long-range sensors were showing now. "Captain," called out his sensor operator, Crix, her voice trembling with excitement. "You need to see this reading. There's something massive out there, just floating in dead space." Dex moved his bulky, insectoid body across the bridge, his compound eyes focusing on the display screen. The green dots, representing his small fleet of 3 salvage vessels, looked tiny compared to the massive signature ahead of them. The object was easily 5 kilometers long and showed no signs of movement or active power systems. "How long has it been there?" Vex asked, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Based on the debris field around it, at least 300 standard years," Crix replied. "Captain, the metal composition is unlike anything in our databases. This could be worth more than everything we've salvaged in the past decade." Vex felt his breathing apparatus work harder as excitement built in his chest. 300 years was ancient by galactic standards. Most civilizations kept detailed records of their ships, but this vessel appeared on no star charts or historical databases. It could be the discovery of a lifetime. "Any identification markings?" he asked. Crix worked her controls for several minutes before responding. "There are symbols along the hull, but our translation systems can't interpret them." "Wait, I'm getting a partial match. The computer thinks one word might be Terra's wrath, but I've never heard of any species called Terra." A chill ran through Vex's exoskeleton. He had heard whispers in the Outer Rim trading posts about an ancient race called humans or Terrans. They supposedly vanished from this sector of space centuries ago, leaving behind only legends and ghost stories. Most spacers dismissed such tales as fantasy, but looking at this massive derelict, Dex wondered if the stories might be true. "Bring us closer," he ordered, "but maintain safe distance. Alert the other ships in our fleet." As the Prophet Seeker approached the mysterious vessel, more details became visible. The ship's hull was made of a dark, metallic substance that seemed to absorb their scanner beams. Unlike most ancient derelicts, this one showed no signs of battle, damage, or structural decay. It looked as if it had been deliberately parked in this location and simply abandoned. Captain Crix said, her voice now filled with worry. "I'm detecting faint energy readings from inside the ship. Very weak, but definitely there." "After 3 centuries?" Dex asked. "That's impossible. No power source lasts that long." "The readings are concentrated in what appears to be the command section. It's almost like something is sleeping in there, not dead." Dex studied the massive warship on his screens. Every line of the vessel spoke of advanced engineering and military purpose. Weapon ports dotted the hull in configurations he had never seen before. This was not a cargo hauler or passenger liner. This was a ship built for war. "Prepare a boarding team," he decided. 5 crew members with full environmental suits and cutting equipment. "I want to know what we're dealing with." "Captain, are you certain that's wise?" asked his second-in-command, Vex. "Unknown alien technology can be dangerous. What if there are security systems still active?" "That's exactly why we need to investigate," Vex replied. "If there's advanced technology aboard that ship, we need to secure it before word spreads and brings competitors." The boarding team assembled in the Prophet Seeker's airlock bay. Besides Vex, the group included Crix, Vex, and 2 junior crew members named Zolt and Grix, All wore heavy environmental suits designed to protect against radiation, toxic gases, and vacuum exposure. They crossed to the alien vessel using magnetic grapples and thruster packs. The ship's hull felt strange under their boots, as if it was somehow alive. The metal seemed to pulse with a barely perceptible rhythm. "There's an airlock here," Vex reported, examining a section of the hull. "But the design is completely foreign. These humans built everything on a much larger scale than we're used to." It took nearly an hour of careful work to bypass the alien airlock systems. When the outer door finally opened, the boarding team was surprised to find breathable atmosphere waiting inside. "The ship is providing air," Crix said, checking her instruments. "How is this possible after 3 centuries? Maybe whatever's keeping those energy systems running is also maintaining life support," Dex suggested. They stepped into the human warship and immediately felt dwarfed by the scale of everything around them. The corridors were wide enough for beings twice their size, and the ceiling stretched high above their heads. The walls were made of smooth, dark metal that gave off a faint luminescent glow. "This doesn't look like any derelict I've ever seen," Zolt whispered. "Everything is in perfect condition." They moved deeper into the ship, following their scanner readings toward the energy source. The corridors were eerily quiet, with only the sound of their own breathing breaking the silence. They passed dozens of sealed doorways, each marked with symbols their translation devices couldn't interpret. Captain Crix called out from ahead, "You need to see this." She had stopped. In front of a massive chamber filled with what appeared to be coffin-like containers. Each container was made of clear material, and inside they could see the preserved remains of the ship's crew. The beings inside looked humanoid, but were larger and more muscular than most known species. "These must be the humans," Dex said quietly, "but they look perfectly preserved, not decayed at all." "Captain, look at this," Vex said from across the chamber. He was standing before a large display screen that had suddenly activated. Symbols moved across it in patterns they couldn't read. But slowly, the alien text began to change into something their translators could understand. "Unauthorized personnel detected," appeared on the screen. "Initiating identification protocols." The chamber began to fill with light as more systems came online throughout the ship. They could hear the distant hum of machinery awakening after centuries of silence. "Warning," the screen displayed. "Foreign species detected aboard military vessel. Awakening command authority." Before any of them could react, one of the preservation containers began to glow with intense light. The being inside appeared to be stirring, though that should have been impossible. The figure was clearly dead, had been dead for centuries. Suddenly, a translucent form materialized in front of the container. It looked like one of the preserved humans, but seemed to be made of light and energy rather than solid matter. The figure wore what appeared to be a military uniform, and its eyes glowed with the same blue light as the ship's systems. "I am Admiral Marcus Kane of the Terran Defense Force," the figure said in perfect Zephyrian language. "You are trespassing on human territory. State your purpose immediately." Dex stared at the ghostly figure in shock. "You're human." But humans disappeared. "From this sector centuries ago." "We did not disappear," Admiral Kane replied. "We evolved beyond the need for physical form. I am the preserved consciousness of this ship's commanding officer. I have been waiting here for 300 years. Waiting for what Crix asked. For someone to wake me up. For someone to trigger the ship's final protocol." The ghostly admiral moved closer to them, and they could feel an intense cold radiating from his form. "You have made a grave mistake coming here. We're just salvage." Dex said quickly. We found your ship floating in space. We thought it was abandoned. Nothing human is ever truly abandoned, Kane said. We always leave guardians behind. This ship, Terra's Wrath, was positioned here for a specific purpose. It is not a derelict, to be salvaged. It is a weapon waiting to be unleashed. More ghostly figures began appearing throughout the chamber. They looked like the crew members preserved in the containers, but like Kane, they appeared to be made of light and energy. Dozens of them materialized, all wearing the same military uniforms. The entire crew, Vex whispered. 2,000 of humanity's finest warriors, engineers, and officers, Kane confirmed. All of us uploaded our consciousness into the ship's quantum matrix before our physical bodies died. We became one with Terra's Wrath, waiting for the day we would be needed again. The ship's systems were fully active now. Lights blazed throughout the corridors, and they could hear the massive engines beginning to power up. The vessel that had been silent for 3 centuries was coming back to life. What do you mean by final protocol? Dex asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. Admiral Kane's expression became grim. 300 years ago, humanity fought a war against an enemy so terrible that we were willing to sacrifice our entire civilization to stop them. The Void Hunters, creatures from the space between galaxies, came to devour all life in this sector. Images appeared on the chamber's displays, showing massive alien vessels unlike anything in current galactic records. The ships were dark and twisted, seeming to bend light around them. They moved through space like living things, consuming everything. In their path, we defeated them, but at a cost, Kane continued. Every human world was destroyed, every human ship lost. But we learned something important in our final battle. The Void Hunters are not gone. They are sleeping, waiting for the right conditions to return. That was 3 centuries ago, Dex said. Surely they would have returned by now, if they were. Coming back, time means nothing to them. They sleep for millennia between feeding cycles. But their return is inevitable, and when they come back, they will be hungrier than before. Terra's Wrath was left here as an early warning system and the last line of defense. More displays activated around the chamber, showing deep space sensor readings. Something massive was moving in the void between galaxies, something that absorbed light and energy as it passed. They're coming, Kane said quietly. Your presence here has activated the ship's sensors and awakened me. The Void Hunters have detected our activity. They know there is still life in this sector worth consuming. The boarding team watched in horror as the sensor displays showed multiple massive objects, changing course and heading toward their location. The signatures were enormous, each one larger than Terra's Wrath itself. How long do we have? Crix asked. Based on their current speed, approximately 6 standard hours before they reach this system, Kane replied. More than enough time for Terra's Wrath to prepare for what must be done. What must be done? Lex demanded. Admiral Kane turned to face him directly, and his ghostly form became more solid, more real. Terra's Wrath is not just a warship. It is a quantum weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. It was built to be humanity's final gambit against an enemy that cannot be reasoned with or defeated through conventional means. The implications hit Dix like a physical blow. You're going to destroy this entire system, if necessary. The Void Hunters must not be allowed to establish a foothold in this galaxy again. Every inhabited world, every sentient species, would be consumed if they succeed. The ship's engines reached full power, and Terra's Wrath began to move for the first time in 3 centuries. The massive vessel turned toward the approaching threat, its weapon systems coming online with deadly purpose. "You cannot do this," Dex protested. "There are billions of innocent lives in the nearby systems, and there will be trillions more if the Void Hunters are not stopped here and now," Kane replied. "I am sorry you became caught up in this," said, "but humanity's final war is about to begin again." Wrath, awakened Terra's wrath, accelerated through space with impossible speed, its quantum drives pushing the massive warship toward the approaching Void Hunter fleet. Admiral Kane's ghostly form stood on the bridge, surrounded by the consciousness of his entire crew. The Zephyrian boarding team watched in terrified fascination as 2,000 human minds worked in perfect coordination to prepare for battle. "All stations report ready," announced Commander Sarah Chen, Kane's second-in-command. Like the Admiral, she appeared as a translucent figure made of light and energy. Quantum torpedoes armed and ready. Reality displacement cannons charging to full power. "What are reality displacement cannons?" Dex asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Weapons that tear holes in space-time itself," Kane replied without taking his attention off the tactical displays. "The Void Hunters exist partially outside our normal dimension. Conventional weapons pass right through them. We had to develop new forms of warfare just to hurt them." The bridge displays showed the approaching enemy fleet in detail now. The Void Hunter ships were massive, organic-looking vessels that seemed to devour light itself. They moved through space like living creatures, pulsing with dark energy that hurt to look at directly. 6 Devourer-class vessels and 1 Omega-class mothership, reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. Same configuration they used in the final assault on Earth 300 years ago. "They haven't learned any new tricks," Kane said grimly. "Good. That means our countermeasures should still be effective." Crix activated her suit's recording system, trying to document what she was witnessing. "Admiral, you said you were willing to destroy entire star systems to stop these creatures. How is that possible?" Kane turned to face her, his expression filled with ancient sadness. "Terra's wrath carries quantum singularity warheads. Each one can collapse a star, creating a chain reaction that destroys everything within several light-years. We built this technology in desperation, knowing we would likely have to use it. But the civilian populations," Vex protested. "There are colonies in this sector, billions of innocent people, and there will be trillions more across the galaxy." "If we fail here," Kane replied, "the Void Hunters don't just kill their victims. They consume their life essence, their souls, everything that makes them who they are. Death is a mercy compared to what these creatures do." The first Void Hunters ships entered weapons range, and space erupted in impossible colors as Terra's wrath opened fire. The reality displacement cannons tore holes in space itself, creating wounds in the fabric of the universe that the Void Hunters couldn't phase through. "Direct hit on the lead Devourer," reported Commander Chen. "It's bleeding dimensional energy. The creature is hurt but still functional." The Void Hunters returned fire with weapons that defied description. Dark energy beams that seemed to eat. Light itself struck Terra's Wrath's shields, causing reality to ripple and bend around the impact points. "Hull integrity holding," called out Chief Engineer Murphy. "The quantum armor is absorbing most of the dimensional stress, but we can't take many more hits like that." Admiral Kane moved to the center of the bridge, his form becoming more solid as he channeled power from the ship's quantum matrix. "All crew, prepare for Phase 2. Begin charging the Omega Protocol." "Sir," Commander Chen said quietly, "are you certain?" "Once we activate the Omega Protocol, there's no going back. The choice was made 300 years ago when we uploaded our consciousness into the ship, Kane replied. We became something more than human, so we could do what living humans could not. Dex watched in horror as the ship's displays showed power building to impossible levels. The quantum reactors were pushing beyond their normal limits, channeling energy from parallel dimensions. What is the Omega Protocol? He demanded. Terra's wrath becomes a living quantum weapon, Kane explained. The ship, the crew, everything gets converted into pure destructive energy. We become a force capable of wiping out the entire Void Hunter fleet at the cost of our own existence. You're talking about suicide, Crix said. We died 300 years ago, Kane replied. What we are now is just humanity's final act of defiance, preserved until it was needed. The battle raged around them as Terra's wrath fought against impossible odds. The human weapons were more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had seen, but the Void Hunters seemed to absorb damage and keep coming. For every wound the human ship inflicted, the alien creatures adapted and grew stronger. They're learning our attack patterns, reported Lieutenant Torres. Each hit is less effective than the last. Then we end this now, Kane decided. All crew, transfer consciousness to the Omega Matrix. Prepare for final transformation. The ghostly crew members throughout the ship began to glow brighter, their forms becoming more energetic and less human. They were preparing to sacrifice their very existence to power a weapon of unimaginable destruction. Wait, Dex called out desperately. There has to be another way. You don't have to destroy yourselves. There is no other way, Kane said sadly. The Void Hunters are too powerful, too adaptable. Only by becoming something beyond their understanding can we hope to stop them. But as the crew began the final transformation, something unexpected happened. The Zephyrian salvage ships outside. Terra's wrath began broadcasting on all frequencies, sending out messages throughout the sector. This is Commander Vex of the Zephyrian Salvage Guild, came his voice over the communication system. We are broadcasting to all ships in the sector. Ancient enemies have returned. Humanity's guardianship is fighting to protect us all, but they need our help. More voices joined the broadcast. Other salvage crews, trading vessels, even military patrols from various species began responding. Within minutes, dozens of ships were converging on the battle site. They're coming to help, Crix said in amazement. Ships from across the sector are coming to fight beside us. Admiral Kane paused the Omega Protocol, watching as the mixed fleet of civilian and military vessels took positions around Terra's wrath. The ships were small compared to the Void Hunters, but they were numerous and determined. This is Captain Vex of the Andorian Defense Force, came a voice over the communication system. We stand with humanity's guardians. All ships coordinate fire on the largest enemy vessel. The combined fleet opened fire on the Void Hunter mothership. Their weapons were primitive compared to Terra's wrath's quantum arsenal, but the sheer volume of fire began to have an effect. The alien creature writhed as hundreds of energy beams struck its dark hull. It's working, Commander Chen reported, with amazement. The conventional weapons are creating interference patterns. The creature can't adapt to so many different attack frequencies at once. Kane made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of proceeding with the Omega Protocol, he redirected the ship's massive energy buildup into the weapon systems. All ships, concentrate fire on my mark, he broadcast to the fleet. Terra's wrath will channel our quantum energy through your weapons. Together, we can destroy these creatures without sacrificing anyone. The technique worked perfectly. Terra's wrath became a power amplifier, channeling quantum energy through the weapons of every ship in the fleet. The combined firepower was devastating, tearing through the Void Hunter vessels like paper. One by one, the ancient enemies were destroyed, their dark forms dissolving back into the void between dimensions. The mothership lasted longest, but even it couldn't withstand the coordinated assault of dozens of species working together. When the last Void Hunter ship was destroyed, space fell silent. The mixed fleet drifted in formation around Terra's Wrath, their crews stunned by what they had accomplished. "It's over," Admiral Kane said quietly. "For now. Will they return?" Dex asked. "Eventually, but not for many centuries, and when they do, the galaxy will be ready. Today you have learned that the threats we face can only be defeated when all species work together." Terra's Wrath began to power down its weapon systems. The ghostly crew members became less solid, their energy forms flickering like candle flames. "What happens to you now?" Crix asked. "We will sleep again," Kane replied. "Our consciousness will merge back into the ship's quantum matrix, waiting for the next time we are needed. But we will not wait alone." He gestured to the mixed fleet surrounding them. "Your people and the people of every species that fought here today have proven themselves worthy guardians. Terra's Wrath will share its knowledge with you, teach you to build defenses against threats like the Void Hunters." "Why?" Vex asked. "Why trust us with such powerful technology?" Admiral Kane smiled, and for a moment his ghostly form looked fully human again. "Because today you chose to fight beside us instead of running away. Because you proved that courage and cooperation can overcome any enemy. Humanity may be gone, but our spirit lives on in people like you." The human crew began to fade, their consciousness returning to the ship's quantum matrix. But before they disappeared completely, Kane had one final message. "Remember this day. Remember that even the darkest threats can be defeated when good people stand together. And remember that humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology. It was our willingness to sacrifice for others." Terra's Wrath went dormant once again, its systems powering down to standby mode. But now it was not alone. The Salvage Guild and representatives from dozens of other species remained to study the ship and learn from its guardians. Vex looked at the massive human warship with new respect. What had begun as a simple salvage operation had become something far more significant. They had awakened humanity's final guardian and learned that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. In the months that followed, Terra's Wrath became a symbol of unity for the entire sector. Species that had never cooperated before worked together to build new defenses based on human technology. The Zephyrian Salvage Guild transformed into a new organization dedicated to protecting the galaxy from ancient threats. And somewhere in the quantum depths of Terra's Wrath, Admiral Kane and his crew slept peacefully, knowing their sacrifice had not been in vain. They had found worthy successors to carry on humanity's legacy of courage, cooperation, and defiance in the face of impossible odds. The galaxy was safe, at least for now, and when the next great threat emerged, it would find a united federation of species ready to stand together against the darkness. The ghost ship had awakened not just to fight, but to teach, and its lesson would echo through the stars for generations to come. That the greatest weapon against any enemy is the willingness of good people to stand together, no matter the odds.